Our biggest competitor is chalk lines and measuring tape. The industry has been using chalk lines for the last 5,000 years. They were invented by the Egyptians to build the pyramids, and that's still what people are doing today to measure and mark and lay out their floors.
I believe adoption is the problem of the manufacturers, not necessarily of the construction companies. Workflow is key to have adoption on the job site. This is key because it's not only a technology problem. Adoption is driven by customer success, support, and make sure that contractors trust the product and the team around it as well.
What we are seeing is that ease of use, easy and fast training, and adapting to existing workflows. We're empowering the worker. We're reducing the amount of pain that is connected with the layout process, so they actually enjoy using the tool.
Another barrier is just the embedded systems and process entrenched in the middle layers of many of these general contractors. I was actually in a GC office about a month ago, and on the wall it said, "Trust the process." And it was like almost a billboard of like, just turn your brain off and do what is expected of you. I think we need to give our contractors at all levels a little more autonomy.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Layout Mania, the ultimate construction layout showdown, brought to you by Bricks and Bytes. And shout out to Christian from Recon Tools for helping to piece all this together. I'm Owen, and today we're digging into one of the most mature and most contested categories in construction robotics and automated and augmented layout. And for layout, for those of you who don't know, is where a design model meets the floor. And it's still one of the most manual, error-prone steps on any job site. Joining us today, we have 4 companies solving that problem in different, same, but different ways. We have Dusty, welcome Tessa. We have Rugged Robotics, welcome Derrick. We have LIGHTYX, welcome Toma. And Mechasys, welcome William. And despite our efforts to bring in one other company who is very active in this space, we unfortunately had a very last minute pullout, in which case they're not going to be here, but I will let you guess who that might be. Some of you guys draw with ink, some of you have project with light, and by the end of this debate, you'll know exactly where the line gets drawn. Simple rules. Christian, CEO of Recon Tools, you're going to moderate today. We have 8 rounds. Answers are capped at 60 seconds. I mean, this is a rule. Implementation, as I'm sure you guys know, is the hard part. But let's try and have some fun and do this. All right, Christian, my friend, are you ready?
Sorry, missing all the good intro. Thanks, Owen. My name is Christian Reed, founder and CEO of Recon Tools. Everyone here knows how hard it is to get founders in the same room, where we have 4 founders of some of the leading layout robotics companies literally across the world with it. So hopefully we get a little bit more details on where everyone's from. 8 rounds, hard-hitting questions, no white papers, no marketing studies. This is all real-world practical insights. And without further ado, let's get things kicked off. So, William, why don't you start us off? 15-second intro. Let's get things kicked off.
Everyone's super excited to be here today. I'm William St-Pierre, Chief Executive Officer of Mechasys. We bring plan to life to allow contractors to build on proof with laser projection. So super excited to be here today.
Thanks, William. Tomer.
Tomer, co-founder of LIGHTYX, in charge of the go-to-market for the US. LIGHTYX brings digital drawings directly to field execution, projecting them full scale onto floors, walls, and ceilings.
Cool. Derrick.
Thank you. Derrick Morse, founder and CEO of Rugged Robotics. Really excited to be part of a group here that's changing the industry. Rugged Robotics is a spatial intelligence platform focusing primarily on layout, as you mentioned, bringing that digital design into the field so the installers have all the information they need at their fingertips.
Thanks, Derrick. And Tessa?
Hi, I'm Tessa Lau, CEO and co-founder at Dusty Robotics. Dusty standardizes construction execution through automated BIM-to-field layout.
Thanks, Tessa. Appreciate everyone's intro. So round 1, here we go. Let's talk about the transition from analog. So Tessa, why don't you start us off? Where are most of your customers coming from, and what are they doing before adopting the Dusty field printer in their workflows?
Pretty much our biggest competitor is chalk lines and measuring tape. The industry has been using chalk lines for the last 5,000 years. They were invented by the Egyptians to build the pyramids. And that's still what people are doing today to measure and mark and lay out their floors. And so when Dusty comes in, we're upgrading this millennial old technology with something a lot more accurate, fast, with much better outcomes.
And William, coming from the laser perspective, do you find the same upgrade when people are coming to you and upgrading their layout workflows?
Yeah, so most of our customers come from the chalk line and tape measure as well, but also total station workflows as well. Most of our customers are framing contractors, MEP contractors, general contractors. We target most of the largest top 100 ENR contractors globally, but also we see a huge wave in technology adoption within the subcontractors in the US, but also across the globe as well. So this is our customer base, and this is where we help.
Great, appreciate it, William. So I guess flipping it over to Tomer, who is actually operating your tool? So we talked a lot about chalk lines and tape measure layout. Who, with this new technology that's better, more precise in many cases, who is typically the person on the job site who is charged with operating your tool once everyone is trained?
So usually the existing layout crew. So we empower the same person that is in charge of layout. We just bring in a better way, a better tool, a better platform to perform his layout tasks much faster.
Great. And Derrick, do you find the same, or who's generally operating one of your robots, or is it something that you operate internally?
It's an interesting question, maybe by design. So we have an internal operations team. We strategically decided to bring this to market initially with a services offering where we could control the customer experience while the market matured, while the technology matured. So we've got a team of 25 people and a fleet of robots, and we deploy all over the country from Houston, Texas, to deliver layout as a service to most of our clients. We do have a handful that are leasing, and we're expanding that product offering as well. But most of our operators come with some level of operations experience in the oil and gas industry. Some of them come from construction backgrounds, some sort of industrial background. Comfortable on a job site and comfortable with some level of technology, we train them up and send them out.
Cool. Appreciate everyone. Now to answer one of the inevitable questions we have two categories of products represented here. One with layout robotics, which are actually drawing ink on the floor, as well as lasers, which are projecting onto various surfaces and giving the operator a clear picture of where marking should be made with it. So I guess to start off with, William, on your side, one of the blog posts on Mechasys mentions the issue of debris and junk on a job site. We've all walked on a job site, usually chaotic in general, but even more so when you have to clear things up with it. So how much of it is a problem of, job site chaos that gives an advantage to lasers, which don't necessarily need a perfectly clean surface to operate on?
Yeah, I think what is really important for a contractor is flexibility in the tools they're actually using, right? So for a subcontractor, it can be quite difficult to control the schedule of a project if you're not the general contractor, right? You can coordinate that, but all of a sudden, if you have an HVAC contractor bringing in his material on the job and you need to lay out, that can be complicated. So this is why we believe that laser layout, or as we call it, predicted reality, has a huge benefit of doing this work in a really flexible way and not requiring to have a clean slab. Also, I got to be honest, it's easier to do demonstration on the job sites as well, right? So we just need to have a small space, and worst case, we move the machine to another location, and then we are able to display on floor or ceiling. So I think it has important aspect, to be honest. I think it's quite important.
And Tomer, let me flip this over to you in regards to laser as well, and we'll get to drawing robots in a second. Laser still put the burden on the person to actually make the mark with it and require, obviously, the supervision of moving the laser around as well as making the mark with it. And if you found that to be a pain point in workflow, advantages, or how does that fit into the broader picture of layout and its marginal improvement over chalk line and tapes, which is fully manual process, to this, call it much more of an augmented workflow in practice?
What we see is that the marking part of the process is not a real pain because the marking doesn't take lots of time. And we can also entirely eliminate the marking process. So some of our contractors choose to just drill on top of the projection, mainly on the ceilings. So it's on them to decide what's the right workflow. We just provide a tool that can offer them either to market or to just install on top of the projection.
Great. And Derrick, flipping it over back to the drawing robot side of it, printers can obviously only do floors with it. Projection can do walls, ceilings, and everything in between with it. And so, how much of the total layout problem, if we were to quantify that in some way for a given job site, do you think can be addressed from the floor in a practical way versus just an inherent limitation of having something that only exists on one plane of many in a given job site?
Yeah, I absolutely see the benefits of projecting things onto the ceiling, but the way that it's done today, the traditional workflow is to mark everything on the floor and then laser project up from that. And excuse me, we've focused on larger project types. I would say the smallest floor plate we're on is roughly 20,000 square feet. The largest is upwards of 1,000,000 square feet. And we find that marking the floor allows the trades to come in with a very, very large production and installation crew, and they've got those permanent marks, and they're moving quickly along corridors. They're expanding their installation area, their work area very, very aggressively to try to move across the floor. So from my perspective, we can put a tremendous amount of detail on the floor. If they do need to work in the ceiling the way the MEP trades do, they laser plumb up to it. They've got someone in a scissor lift up there already, and they're able to move along the corridor and put the hangers in over 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet really quickly and easily because we've got that horizontal kind of spread out information.
So bouncing it over to you, Tessa. So obviously benefit of having all your information centralized on the floor and back to the traditional workflow of using a plumb laser for anything that needs to be transferred to the ceiling. How big of a problem do you see that of, we're asking people to push forward and adopt a digital workflow where there's still opportunity for time consumption errors, have to have, bring a ladder over, a scissor lift to actually transfer the markings, make sure they're actually aligned in the same spot with it? Do you view that as a marginal improvement to eliminate that, a longer term vision that the industry needs to address to move forward with it, or somewhere in between when addressing what exists on the floor versus what needs to be transferred elsewhere in the given layout space?
What we've seen is that the benefits far outweigh any inconveniences. We just published a case study of a hospital that we built out here in the Bay Area. It was an $18 million job. And the mechanical trade, because they were able to lay out using Dusty all the trades at the same time in a fraction of the time, the mechanical trade could come in first before the framers. Normally, they would come in after the framers have put down the walls and started constructing partial walls. And so when the mechanicals came in, they were able to double their productivity. And it returned $2.5 million to the owner. And on an $18 million project, that's a significant cost savings. And so that's definitely worth the cost.
Jumping ahead a bit, but bouncing off that for a bit, Tessa, how do you quantify that $2 million and how do you portray a value that's shared between both you to use in a case study as well as the actual contractor to realize, or GC, whoever's in charge of the layout to appreciate that figure in practice?
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is that this is not just labor replacement. This is really changing how you can do construction. And when you adopt automated layout, what you're doing is enabling a new way to sequence and orchestrate the work in the field. And so the way they got that huge savings on that one project was they actually changed the order in which the trade showed up on site. And because they did that, each trade got a more optimal environment in which to do their install, and they were able to double their productivity. And so it's not just the layout productivity that's impacted, it's the productivity of every single trade on that site. That's the real impact.
Yeah, appreciate it, Tessa. So hopefully this gives everyone an overview of the differences of technologies. And now hopping into round three, let's talk a bit more about the industry, and a great segue into here with it. So question for you, Derrick. HP's entry into the space after their Autodesk University unveiling a few years ago certainly added a level of validation and commercial/enterprise muscle to the space in general with it. From a very practical standpoint, how have you found that's affected Rugged Robotics in terms of, when you first make contact with a customer, things people are looking for with it, and overall impact on the industry with their entry into the space?
Overall, the net is a tremendous positive, I think, for everyone. Draws a lot of attention to this use case, draws credibility to it. Early on, Tessa and I were trying to educate and build awareness through the industry. And we're two startups, right? We've got limited resources, and trying to move the needle on one of the largest industries in the world was hard. HP has a marketing machine and a budget that I can only dream of. So for them to enter the race and to participate, I think is a net win for everyone. It's been a pleasure to kind of reap the benefits of all three of us, and as well as the projection systems building more and more awareness within the industry. When it comes to actual direct interactions, I don't think that we compete directly. Again, we're primarily a service provider. We definitely run into projects where there's an HP unit sitting in the trailer and it's not getting used, or for one reason or another, they're not getting the productivity out of it. So we do run into them on job sites from time to time, but it has not been a detractor. It has not reduced our workflow or our business in any way. If anything, it's only increased it.
Yeah, and Tomer, let me ask you, what is, when someone is deciding to buy a LIGHTYX projector unit, what are they deciding between a construction robot or a light projector, or is this for a specific purpose they have in many of the conversations that you have with your current customers?
So usually they are deciding between manual and LIGHTYX. From time to time, they have like we have some competition, but it's not very, like, I would say 80% of the, 80% of the cases or more, they're just they just want to be sure that they can transfer efficiently from the manual layout to a digital workflow, right? And that's just a kind of a leap. They are not transferring from one technology to the other. They are transforming from almost zero technology, maybe laser levels, right, to a whole new world of digital workflow.
And William, do you find something similar with your conversations in terms of when people are coming to you or your distributors, what they're deciding against, whether this is their first tool, they're deciding between laser layout or robotics? Like, how do those conversations generally go from Mechasys side of things?
Yeah, so I think what's important here is that we're all moving in the same direction, right? Our goal is to drive technology adoption in the industry, and we all work together on this. Of course, our goal is to be able to replace tape measures and chalk line. And to be honest, this is probably our biggest competitor. Like, our biggest competitor today is like DeWalt or Milwaukee with their tape measures, right? So I think like there's so much adoption that we can have just on the total station business today. I think it's about 16% adoption rate in the industry overall, and it's been stable throughout the last 10 years. Doesn't mean that there's not more total stations sold today, just that it's spreading horizontally to like landscapers as well and other trades that are starting to use those workflows to be able to perform their job. So yes, of course, the tape measure is the primary tool that is used today, and this is what we compete with. And when a construction company is looking for a solution in terms of layout, well, they need to think about their toolbox and their types of projects that they will have, right? It's not one solution fits all. There's going to be some solutions that will be better for some types of projects and the opposite for some other types of projects, right? And we are there to guide customers and drive them value on their project.
Great, William. Well, appreciate the overview, and I think a really interesting insight industry that, again, I don't know if we're all being nice to each other here, but sounds like a lot more of the problem is the inherent industry moving forward, much more so than a specific competitor, which is great to hear and certainly exciting in an emergent field of construction robots. So segueing here, we'll enter round 4 and talk about the technology behind the products with it. So Tessa, you have one of the probably the most accurate setup here with it, and use a, if I'm quoting numbers correctly, $100,000 laser follower setup with it to achieve this accuracy between a base station and the robot itself with it. So tell me a bit more about how you wound up there and made the decision to prioritize this level of accuracy and setup versus, when we talked to Derrick, a more self-contained unit with it, and the approaches to that strategy and how that's worked out in practice.
So our philosophy is building what the customer needs. And so when we started doing our initial customer discovery in the early days, we looked at the accuracy requirements. We did a number of pilots with early technology, and we discovered that accuracy really matters. And so in order to get the accuracy that our customers demand, we knew we had to use a laser tracker. So we integrate with Hexagon's AT500 laser tracker device. And we combine that with the most accurate mobile robot in the world. And we're able to deliver sub 0.5 millimeter accuracy on a job site, which, as everyone moves more towards prefab, is really what the industry needs to actually build accurately.
And how do you feel about that, Derrick, in terms of accuracy requirements, as well as taking, to give the audience a little perspective, a self-contained approach where the robot has a series of presumably time-of-flight sensors to navigate around, along with others to be able to navigate a job site without the other laser follower setup or the HP setup of using a robotic total station to navigate around the job site with a line of sight or generally line of sight contact?
We participated. We conducted our own kind of customer engagement early on. I also come from the industry. I worked with the tools when I was younger, so I spent a lot of time out there doing this manually myself. The real world accuracy in my world, in my view, where the real world is just never actually operating down at that sub-millimeter level of accuracy. It's great if you can achieve it, but it's not often attainable. What we identified as our customers' primary need is ease of use. They want a tool, not an overly complicated system. So we've focused on building a really easy to use system with everything on board, incorporated into the platform. Our North Star for all of our design decisions was ease of use. So we've designed a system where we control the UX UI end to end, from the data processing and the entire data layer and workflow to the tablet, to unboxing the robot, setting it up on the job site, mobilizing, deploying, and monitoring it. You don't need someone that can operate a total station or a laser scanner. We've embedded all of that technology. And to be frank, I'm jealous of how quickly Tessa was able to get to market by using some of that existing technology. Smart choice from an entrepreneurial perspective there. It was a hard hill to climb for us to build the accuracy that we have into the platform and design
for us
that
too
system.
as well.
Well, William, I think a good segue, and one of the unique perspectives, I believe, from Mechasys is also a good segue into this question, which is how important is the ability to make dynamic updates in the field based on real-world conditions? And I know this is something based on the scanning capability of the XR projector that Mechasys offers that is a relatively unique selling point to some extent with it. So curious to hear your perspective as a segue of like ease of use, which also embodies like what does the actual job site look like, not what the BIM model says it should be on a computer.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's fundamental, to be honest, because like I've done layout as well myself, Derrick, with tape measures and chalk line, and God, that was a pain. I've done it, and I love this industry from the bottom of my heart, to be honest. But you got to, I believe you got to have a tool that is able to provide you flexibility on the job site, both in terms of like positioning, but also in terms of modifying layout on the fly, but also being documented, right? This is really important. I think today there's 3 types of modification that happens on the job site. From the subcontractors, most importantly, the one that nobody document, right? There's just the layout crew will actually perform the modification, tell no one. The second one is the layout changes that they will skip it, that they will skip that specific section, create an RFI, and come back to it right after that. So will not necessarily block the project. And the third one is that everything stops, right? There is a major issue and you need to solve it right now. Otherwise, you'll have more problem. Well, the 1 and 2, especially the 1 section, is the modification that are done from the field workers that are not documented. What's the who takes that decision, right? It's a decision. It's the layout worker. So if he moves by 1/8 of an inch or he moves by an inch, he decides whether he reports it or not. And I think this is important. Documentation of the modification that happens on the job site. And we offer a tool that is very simple to perform those changes, build the trust within the users to be able to lay out correctly, while they see what they're going to install right after. So I think it's a benefit for the customers. When I was doing layout myself, this is something
5 seconds, William, before we cut you off here, buddy.
Yeah, that's good. Perfect.
Cool. Tomer, on a similar vein with it, how important is the usability? And I guess maybe to quantify this a bit more with it, you started a couple of years ago with both a hardware product and obviously accompanying software with it. Tell me more about the progression between the two with it. Was it easier to reach a steady state of hardware where the constant iteration of the software was needed to get to both a user experience and a feature level that resonated in the field with it? As certainly usability, I think, is a big barrier for everyone in this room and general adoption of technology across the construction space.
So bring the first version that can actually provide value on a job site was a huge step. And every step since then is still a very big step on the hardware side. The software just climbs slowly, but it's easier to see. And right now with the AI, it's easier to see all the advantages that you can get with the software. But hardware is still a limitation. And it will still be that way. That's why you will see AI and software, evolve much faster, and then robotics will just follow it a bit slower because you have like the mechanical parts, you have like the electrical parts, so it's a harder and longer R&D cycle.
Great. Appreciate it, Tomer. So, now we have an overview on the technology. Let's talk a bit more about the adoption. So this first question I'm going to shoot over to Derrick. Tell me more, Derrick, about, there's a full spectrum of a workflow for any type of process on a construction site. And with layout, nothing more elemental than the design and everything else with it. How has your philosophy changed, if at all, from when you first started to today in terms of what part of that workflow does Rugged need to own to be successful, from the actual, I have a file ready and I'm actually layout, versus a bit more upstream in terms of file processing, design practices, and where do you define those left and right limits in terms of certainly hardware product at its core, but obviously need good inputs to get anything useful out of it on the back end?
I would say it's expanding in both directions. Obviously, in order to be effective on the job site, we need good data, but I mentioned ease of use is our North Star. We cannot only work with the most sophisticated contractors in the world. We want to make something that's broadly applicable and meet the industry where it is. So we're constantly on the upstream side of things, trying to broaden our funnel, accept a wider range of file formats, a wider range of design qualities and levels of detail. We're building tools to make that easier and easier. One of the things that we discovered early on is that the processing and the cleanup of data to use some of these automated layout tools was a huge burden. So we're trying to solve that burden. On the downstream side of things, as Tessa correctly identified, we see tremendous ROI in unlocking much faster, more efficient, more accurate installation. So we're also trying to bring as much detail into the field as possible to enable that. So when you look at what's required in the field, the level of detail we're trying to carry into the field, and I'm talking like panel numbers and circuit numbers for every single electrical receptacle, so the electrician knows where they have to drop wires from, that level of detail to really crank up the efficiency that they're installing in. And then looking upstream to the model to see if we have that data or we can somehow create and fill the gaps where that data may not exist. We're trying to really push the limits in both directions.
And Tomer, have you found that an issue at all, of customers who are excited about the end state of having files that could be projected, but there was a huge amount of work either you had to undertake or actually not able to work with them based on just not being able to, for lack of a better term, get their shit together to have a file that's ready to be projected onto a given surface?
So like Derrick said, we are aiming to work with all kind of contractors. So we can take not just PIN files, but DWG files, regular CAD drawings, even PDFs. So we are very flexible in the ability to digest different kind of files and support different kind of environments and workflows.
Tessa, let me ask you for adoption. What has union reception been to your product to start off with, and then a couple segues from here with it? And, is that something that's evolved from when you first launched to today, and what place it fits into the broader, call it like practicalities of how the construction industry operates, much more so than like the actual value it's providing at an isolated level?
If we had more time, I would tell you about the time we almost got the takedown notice from the Carpenters Union, because we were operating our robots in the early days on job sites. Right now, the unions have embraced layout automation. They are all of the major unions are running Dusty training classes, international, and teaching their workforce how to adopt these new tools. Because they know that this is the future, and they know that they have to embrace that future if they want to stay relevant in the future world. And so, for example, the Carpenters have a 3-level Dusty curriculum. You go in level 1, you learn the basics, you come out level 3, a certified operator.
And as a follow-up, sorry, William, go ahead.
Christian, I would like to add here, I think it's fundamental because you need to understand as well how union makes their money, right? through memberships. And construction workers, there's less and less young people that are willing to go to construction because it's a hard work. And adopting robotics or laser projection is a great way to attract more talent through their unions and have more membership payments. As a matter of fact, as our shareholders, we do have one of the largest unions pension fund that invested in a business because they believe in what I just said, right? So I think there's a shift right now in the union's mentality that is really positive for the industry.
I'd also like to add that if you look at the markets and the contractors that are always leading with sophistication, with new technologies, with more digital workflows, it's always stemming from the union markets where labor rates are really, really expensive because they have to be able to move efficiently. They have to deliver a level of quality commensurate with their labor rates. So, I mean, we're based in Houston, Texas, and the union presence here is not strong. And there's a little more stickiness around the status quo and the old way of doing things. When you go to the Northeast, you go to the West Coast, you see much higher adoption rates of all types of technology.
Great. And let me ask you, I'll direct this one to Tessa, and happy for any follow-up as well. How big of an issue is it to getting back to fundamental construction issues of, in theory, one of the best people to own layout would be the general contractor themselves with it and not the individual subcontractors with it, that if you have perfect layout for one trade and not the other with it, you can still have the same problems that plague reworks, walls not being in the right spot, and so on with it. How much of that has been a barrier? Have you seen any shifts over recent time, or is seeing the success of these larger scale projects? Do you see them separate between ones that have that coordination between electrical, MEP, drywall, or ones that just do an isolation of the subtrades with the full value they can take out of digital layout?
Yeah, we do multi-trade layout on the majority of our jobs, and so general contractors are more than half of our customer base, and that's because coordination. That's the problem we're solving for them. Coordination is a much bigger problem than labor automation. Coordination causes all of the problems that you see in the field, and that is really the general contractor's problem. And so when they're adopting Dusty, they are realizing that they now have another tool in their toolkit to reduce or eliminate the number of conflicts that they see in the field. And all of those conflicts are things that cost them more money and delay their schedule.
Tomer, bouncing that to you, do you find, and one of the things I like to say internally is a lot of our job, at least at Recon, is like therapy sessions of like solving problems that are not ours to own, but are needed to be solved in order for a solution to be adopted in the space with it. Do you find similar interactions where when you talk to people, you're helping solve other ones, whether very simple paper processes that need to be digitized, workflows, or do you find those to be a barrier, or finding you and your sales team, implementation team having to overcome those to successfully adopt a LIGHTYX projector on a given job site?
Yeah, so layout is the missing link between like the digital design and the actual implementation. So we are solving a real problem. We are bridging this gap, and while we're bridging this gap, we are solving also other problems, right? Papers, wrong versions, like wrong measurements, labor shortage of like people that are not layout masters, but using the right tools, they can be very good at what they are doing. And layout is not just confined to construction. We see it also in prefabs. Laser can be used also in prefab constellation, so not just for construction. So yes, as we are gaining more and more field experience and more like millions of square feet of construction layout, we are solving more and more issues and getting workflows much better.
Appreciate it, Tomer, and this is a great insight on adoption to the space. So to wrap up the adoption round here before we move on to the next one, would appreciate a quick 15-second overview of some key lesson for the audience on adoption, as I'm sure we have many in the construction technology space with it, starting with William. Give us a little bit of the biggest insight you can provide on just how you've figured out adoption in a notorious stubborn and difficult to please space?
I believe adoption is the problem of the manufacturers, not necessarily of the construction companies, right? So workflow is key to have adoption on the job site. And I really believe in our customer success team as well to guide contractors to be able to guide them through their project and maximize values of our product like ours or the robotic printers as well. So I think this is key.
Cool. Derrick?
I would say from our perspective, we have to approach every engagement as an organizational change management initiative. We've got to manage a lot of stakeholders. And one of the biggest challenges is the discussion around price versus value and opening people's eyes to looking at ROI and looking at value and quantifying that and holding their hand through that journey.
Cool. Tomer?
So what we are seeing is that ease of use, easy and fast training, and adapting to existing workflows. That's what works for LIGHTYX. We are empowering the worker. We are not we're reducing the amount of pain that is connected with the layout process, so they actually enjoy using the tool.
Cool. And Tessa?
We're seeing a flywheel effect starting to take effect here. Our typical path to adoption is starting on one project, proving out the ROI on that project, moving horizontally to more projects within that same company's backlog, and then starting to become adopted as the enterprise standard, typically through the equipment yard who purchases us and then places us on all their jobs.
Great. Appreciate it, Tessa. Thanks, everyone. So adoption, hopefully you have a little bit clearer picture, and certainly a key issue of any new technology in a space, and certainly something that no robotics group has done in construction technology more than the layout founders we have in the space here with it. So great segue, and certainly a part of adoption is what are you actually selling with it, right? The business model, how it works, what solution you're actually offering to a customer is I don't think anyone here is offering, a single product. They're offering a solution to replace a manual and oftentimes error-prone and slow process with it. So I guess we'll start with Derrick for this one. Tell me more. So you guys and mentioned previously, you consciously decided to provide a more curated experience where one of your 25-person team will come out and actually come to the experience. Was that done initially to make sure the product was in a state that could be shared more widely and then kept it, or were there other incentives that make that the dominant business model to this day for?
It's a great question. I would say our motivations have definitely evolved. In the early days, to be transparent, that our technology wasn't there. So by having our team in the field, we could overcome the edge cases and we could learn from those edge cases, bring that information back to the engineering team, build out the features we needed to. So it helped us get out there, be in the field. While the market was still maturing and while the technology was still maturing, it was a great way to bring this to market. And I'm really glad I did that. In the process, we discovered a lot of people really, really like this solution. We get calls from a ton of people, and it's interesting. I've seen Tessa has openings for operators. HP is open job posting for operators. So there is definitely a segment of the customer base that prefers this service offering. As the technology and the market have matured, we're now expanding into a product offering as well. So it's evolving over time, but one real benefit of the services offering is we can charge a premium for that services. We're more experienced than anyone in the world in delivering layout as a service. We've done millions and millions of square feet, and we can charge a premium for that. We're vertically integrated. We can control our own costs. So it's actually worked really well for us to start it, and we plan to continue that offering as well.
William, tell me a bit more about your distribution model that I obviously follow you on LinkedIn and see a lot of posts of new distributors opening up in the US, abroad, internationally with it. And tell me more about that strategy and how you maintain the vision you have as a company working with distributors that while use relatively high-tech products that most of them seem like surveying companies or are familiar with the general ones with it of the advantage of selling a robotic product that might be the first or, the first step forward from robotic total stations, which were, probably more prevalent in the late 90s, early 2000s of when they started to make their way around surveying companies or distributors.
Yeah. So I think one of the most complicated things in robotics and projection is not the product itself. That's a tough part, but it's through distribution, right? Because the person that wins distribution wins the game. And I think this is really important. So we believe that there is existing channels that exist today that are able to support locally the contractors on their project. For us, support is really important. And when the customer buys one of our product, it needs to be able to call someone, and that same person comes on the same day to be able to support that person on the job site. And this is key because it's not only a technology problem. Adoption is driven by customer success, support, and make sure that contractors trust the product and the team around it as well. So we went through distribution channels. We're right now supplying in multiple countries our product, and so far it's going well. And I think this is the way to go, especially through geospatial dealers. Distributors that will retail total stations today, they have that expertise, they have that customer segments as well, they know their customers, and this is a win for us.
And Tomer, do you find price, everyone here has specifics of price and how they charge it. Do you find that price is, even the top or a top three reason of why people aren't adopting it? Or do you find the issues of adoption to be more systemic and price is either an afterthought, or do you find that does come up in conversation as to where that money is coming from, who's paying for it, what bucket it falls into, whether it's a own product? And tell us a little bit more about how you think about that and how that's evolved LIGHTYX's go to market strategy.
Yeah, for LIGHTYX, we have like a flat rate, which is very affordable. And the only time where pricing is a problem is if the project is not a fit, if they don't have enough usage or estimated usage. Okay, so for very small projects, they do not see the ROI. But for medium one, even if they have like just 10,000 square feet per month, that's just enough to justify using LIGHTYX and get the ROI they want to see. So when they see the ROI, and usually it's easy, pricing is not an issue.
Great. And Tessa, tell me more about operators. So Derrick mentioned it before, and a very curious phenomenon to get to that flywheel effect where people are actually looking for operators. Tell me more about how people are using it, and presumably is that someone that you're hiring for to lend out to job sites? Companies who have some of your robots are actually using with it, and certainly a fascinating field when it reaches the maturity level of actually hiring dedicated people. And I've seen many, not even case studies, of just people posting on LinkedIn where there are dedicated personnel operating the Dusty field printer in particular. So I'd love to hear more behind the scenes of how that evolution came to be and what it looks like today.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts about creating a new category is that you can actually create more jobs. So Dusty doesn't operate. We just provide the solution. But what we've seen is that our customers are starting to bring up dedicated layout teams. And so we've even helped some of them write job postings for layout technicians. And so we are actually creating this really good job in the construction industry where someone gets to run layout robots for a living. And I think that's a really exciting new thing that is going to attract a lot more younger people into the industry, which we all know has a problem attracting more talent. And then I think also at the same time, one of the new innovations that we brought to market this year was our service provider program, where instead of similar to what Derrick is doing, some of our customers want a full turnkey solution. They don't want to have to learn how to operate the robot themselves. They don't want to have to hire that talent themselves. And so we have service providers now that will operate Dusty robots on third-party job sites.
Very cool. And one of the fascinating insights to me, and as evidenced by HP being in the space and the four remarkable founders in this conversation here, and I'd love to go around and hear from everyone, is what is stopping this from becoming bigger and bigger, right? I don't know what everyone's growth curve looks like. Obviously, the sign of any space to be involved with is that there are multiple companies working on solution, different variations of it with it. Just using napkin math, the total addressable market seems huge with it. Like, what is preventing the gap between where everyone is today and getting to that market where it's a standard, it's huge, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry from likely the tens of millions, if not low, 100 million space it is today with it? And what do you see as it relates to your product or company of like getting to that spot with it? And with this, we'll start off with William to hear your thoughts on the gap between the two.
Again, I think the best reference we do have is a total station market, right? 16% adoption in the US, 8,000 to 9,000 units sold per year, right? So this is like the status quo of a market that is established. I think the missing piece here is first market education, but also simplicity in the usage of the technologies. Right? It needs to be crazy simple. It doesn't need to. It should not be as complicated to use as a total station. To be honest, we need to have a carpenter or a plumber that uses the product within a few minutes. And then is operational within a few hours, and then after a week, it tripled its productivity rates already, right? Financing program as well. I think it's key for contractors to be able to acquire those technologies and use them on their projects. So I think that this is what's missing right now.
Great. Derrick?
I would 100% agree that ease of use is one of the biggest barriers. And if you look at total stations and the level of sophistication required to operate those, I think that is a barrier. It's not insurmountable. More and more contractors are using total stations every day, but we're trying to create something that's so easy. It's lives in the back of your pickup truck. You pull it out, you drop it down on the floor, and you can be instantly productive and instantly impactful on the job site. I would say another barrier is just the embedded systems and process entrenched in the middle layers of many of these general contractors. I was actually in a GC office about a month ago, and on the wall it said "Trust the process," and it was like almost a billboard of like, just turn your brain off and do what is expected of you. I think we need to give our contractors at all levels a little more autonomy. And I recognize that there is risk with that, but I think it's important. If you're going to start driving change, you've got to trust your people. You've got to hire great people and trust them to do great things. So I'm excited to see that starting to happen with a lot of general contractors opening their eyes to technology and to automation, giving it a whirl. And as Tessa said, we're seeing the same things. Once you get out there, you prove out the ROI, you can start to see things starting to spread and grow within a contractor and then to adjacent contractors pretty quickly.
Tomer?
So I think the market fragmentation, so you're winning one company, they have like 10 offices. Each office is different, doing different type of projects. Sometimes there is no communication between the offices. So we are actually starting by selling a solution to one project, but we need to, build a success story, go to other projects, and eventually they tell us, okay, let's pilot it again. So kind of miscommunication that just slows down the sales process, and that's just, I think, the hardest factor that we see right now.
Thanks for being honest, Tomer. There's definitely a lot of that. There's a lot of fragmentation, even within one company, where the right hand does not talk to the left, and you've got to go prove it again. We run into that all the time.
Tessa?
There's this famous saying in the VC world that a first-time founder focuses on product and a second-time founder focuses on distribution. And so what we're looking at right now is just, I think the barrier to adoption is really distribution, and it's really acknowledging that the shape of the industry is very different from most other industries. It's a project industry. Everything happens on a project-by-project basis. And what slows adoption down is that a project lifecycle is really long relative to the time that layout happens. And so we might be working with a project manager on a job, super successful, loves us, will use us on his next job. His next job is not for another 3 years. And so how do we spread faster inside of this industry when a project cycle is multi-years? And so figuring that out, I think, is the key to actually getting massive growth and scale in this industry.
Yeah, appreciate that, Tessa. And I think that's a great segue into our next round, which we'll call the competitive chessboard with it. So we have a lot of companies here taking different solutions with it. Hopefully everyone here has got a bit of insight of the philosophical and technology differences between them. But in practice, like any solution, no two people are making the same thing and likely to still be existing after a short period of time with it. So curious, maybe starting with you, Tessa, what is going to allow, do you see this as a winner take all category in general? And if not, how do you view a mature version of this market existing, and what do you think will be the differences as they relate to maybe distribution accessibility, technology itself with it? And we've heard, different approaches, accuracy, pricing models with it, and with the entry of HP in the space, we have a really diverse set of, every aspect of that with it. I'm curious, how do you view a mature version of this market, and what do you think make the distinct differences between the people who exist in that more mature market at some point in the given future?
Well, I think automated layout is inevitable. I think that once people start using this, they don't go back to chalk lines and tape measures. And I also think that the market is enormous. Layout happens on every single job, from your bathroom remodel up to your largest data center. And so what that means is that it's a big enough market for multiple solutions to exist. I don't think it's a case where winner takes all. I think it's a case where the products start to differentiate and aim for different segments of that market. In fact, one of our customers is using both Dusty and LIGHTYX on the same job. They use Dusty for the ground truth on the floor, and then they use LIGHTYX to protect up. And so it's a market that's big enough that needs multiple solutions in order to solve the challenging problems in construction.
And Tomer, it's great to hear that insight of using both on the job site. Do you view a place where there's, inevitably some light amount of overlap, but in the future, if this vision Tesla is proposing winds up being where automated layout is the standard with it, that people will have both some robot that's drawing things on the floor and another one that's able to project things on other surfaces with it? Is that the harmony you can imagine for this future market, or do you see it being more biased in one direction or the other, or something completely different that doesn't
definitely and you can add another robot that is just doing other things on site. So the construction and the production environment in the construction is very, very complicated. So we have solved a 2D problem right now with the layout, but construction is 3D. So all kind of other solutions that are layout solution, production solutions, we'll see them working hand to hand with our layout solutions. And each one of the layout solution has its own place, its own workflows where it excels. And so there is place for everyone.
And William, let me ask you, as a laser projector, what prevents at some point in the future, and do you view this as a threat of whatever we call it, VR, AR, XR glasses that are able to have anchor points that are accurate to, say, like the millimeter spot, which, well away, many technology leaps away from that happening. But do you feel that's something that lives in practice with something like yours that has this dynamic flexibility of where it's projecting it, but that everyone can see versus certain people seeing the glasses? And like, how much of that do you view as like a distant future and something deal with when the time comes? Or do you see it as an inevitability that even if it does happen, there's a place for, all this to be able to exist in harmony with one another?
Yeah, great question. I think you should ask the question to Microsoft, Apple, Trimble as well, right? Well, I've tried those headsets, and it would not be really comfortable, to be honest, at the end of the day, to use it for an 8-hour workday, right? So comfort is something that is important. Dizziness as well is something that is also really important. And the most important fact, it's not everyone that has a complete 3D model as well for their job sites, right? If they want to use with the 2D file, they should be able to operate any types of solution they actually bought. So no, I don't think so. I think would be great, but I think we're far, far, far away from being there.
Great. And Derrick, tell me more about how much do you think this is driven by capital war chest, that everyone here in the conversation has raised some amount of venture capital money with it, and I'd be butchering if I tried to quote exact numbers with it, but everyone here has raised venture capital, presumably to grow a company, start a product, grow a team. I think everyone here is generating some revenue with it to help sustain things with it. But how much do you view it as a capital challenge, both in general and to compete against HP, which has a very large war chest that's subsidized by their other presumably printing lines of things behind it? And how much of that do you think plays into some of the themes we heard in the conversation today, from distribution, technology development, trying different services with it? And how much of that do you think constrained, I guess, both relevant for Rugged and the industry as a whole to be able to move it forward to these next steps, all of which will require some amount of capital, but I'm curious as a benchmark from where you are today?
Yeah, I would say one of the hardest parts about my job is I live between two different worlds. I live between the venture community that has an inherent time horizon that they're looking for financial returns on. And I also have to bridge that with the construction industry that evolves more slowly than I think the venture community would like them to. So that's like the intersection that I live at, and it's really hard. I would say we've intentionally been mindful with how quickly we bring on capital, because there's this sort of technology maturity and also market maturity that's starting to happen now. And capital is becoming more important to me now than it was a few years ago, because the industry wasn't really there yet. It didn't matter how much money I had, how sophisticated the technology was, how easy it was to use. There just wasn't that full level of awareness. So we've operated pretty lean, pretty efficiently to date. I stand behind that decision, and now we're getting more serious about working with partners and bringing on more money. So as the market's matured, we can lean into it and start doing bigger things.
And bouncing that to Tessa, as I think the company in this conversation, at least, who raised the most money, how much do you feel is capital constrained of being able to reach these next levels, dealing with the long timelines of projects? Like, how much of that is a capital problem to be able to deploy the resources needed to explore, execute these more so than other limitations or bottlenecks elsewhere in the overall system of running a robotics company?
Yeah, I think I'll echo what Derek said. One of the challenges in construction is just the long cycle times, and it has to do with that project lifetime that I was talking about earlier. There is a limited window in which the industry, each project can adopt this technology, and if you miss that window, then that's it for that project. And so you have to. It's a challenging process to figure out how to scale up, and that takes time. Once you get there, then I think what I'm projecting is there's going to be this tipping point where it's going to be considered irresponsible not to use Dusty, and so eventually, everyone's going to be asking, like, why isn't there Dusty on this job, rather than the inverse. But in order to get to that point, we have to be patient. We have to build up that awareness, create that market, and and educate everyone about the benefits of this technology, and just get it out there.
Great. Well, appreciate it, Tessa. So it looks like we're running up against our time. So we had a great conversation today, a lot of good insights, and really took everyone through a behind the scenes process from the founders who have lived and breathed everything construction, layout, and robotics for the past 5-10 years in some cases with it. So hopefully we left everyone today with a little bit more insight, as well as some follow up to see where this adoption goes, and moving into these faster and cost savings implementations in many cases with it. So to get things wrapped up for today, we'll do a lightning round and take some time to leave the audience with insight here with it. We covered a lot of topics today, so we'll leave this open-ended as to what to cover, then get to a couple of audience questions that came up. But William, why don't you start us off here?
Well, I think we're all working together, right, to educate the industry and push the innovation forward in the construction industry in the U.S. So if you are curious, contact us and compare us a product, right? I think this is the best thing you can do. Reach out to our support team, sales team, and we'll show up on your job site. It's relatively easy, to be honest. For us, we do demonstration at no cost. So yeah, we'll show up, we'll prove the value. I think there's one way to figure it out.
Great. Thanks, William. Derek?
I would say core takeaway from my perspective is digital layout, automated layout is here. It's here today. It's working. It delivers tremendous ROI during the layout stage, during the installation stage. If you're not seriously looking at this, you're missing out. Your competitors are. This isn't something that you should think about for your next project. It's something you should think about now. As demonstrated by the panelists here, there are a lot of different ways to consume this. There are different technologies. There's different go-to-market strategies, commercial offerings. So if you're interested in delivering your projects more efficiently and more safely with a higher level of quality and capturing real cost savings, you should be looking at it and look at the menu of options that you have in front of you and find one that works for your project and for your team.
Thanks, Derek. Tomer, what do you got for us?
So using a layout tool, a digital layout tool, is like using any power tool. Like like it's irresponsible not to use it. And I think that this is the time to adopt the digital workflow, to have your layout done in like a fraction of the time, with much better accuracy. You can use LIGHTYX, you can use any other technology for that. But go to digital layout. Just transition there, and you'll see the results right away.
Great. Thanks, Tomer. And I do certainly like this saying, it's irresponsible not to use it. So that'll be a good tagline for this call when we post it later on YouTube. But Tessa, why don't you wrap us up and leave the audience with some of your wisdom?
Well, I think our customers say it better than we do. So if you head over to our website, dustyrobotics.com, we have a ton of case studies from all of our successful customers, everything ranging from single family homes all the way up to the most complicated mission critical or healthcare projects. And depending on who you are, the value prop that you receive from automated layout is slightly different. And so we've represented most of those different viewpoints through our customers. And so if you want to hear from the market leader in automated layout, come talk to us.
Great. Thanks, Tessa. So appreciate everyone joining us today. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Owen, and we'll go through some of the customer questions that came up while we were having the discussion.
Yeah, thank you guys. Okay, well, we have two to get through, so I'm going to show it on the stream here. It says, this is from Bob McGurk. Can you share how your solutions work alongside a Trimble Business Center offers workflow and traditional total station layout and on-site control points? Please describe applications in horizontal and vertical construction. Guys, I'll go through, I guess I'm not 100% certain if this applies to all of you, so I will ask. If not, then just pass, but I'll go in order of my screen. William, you want to go first?
So we recognize that we won't replace your total stations setup right away, right? So I think what is important here is that with the total station, you'll be able to do your formwork job, and you'll be able to set up your main controls on your project, and then we'll be able to do all the rest, basically. From your control points or your control lines that you've laid out, we'll be able to lay out all the other trades, either on the floor, walls, or ceilings. And in terms of like the Trimble Business Center, we do have as well our XR Cloud platform. If you do detect a clash on the job site, you're able to generate an issue, tag it into project site software if this is something you're interested of, and then link that issue to an RFI and then move forward, right? So when I mean workflow, this is what I mean. Being able to adapt to your existing workflow and not being cumbersome to your existing workflow.
Nice. Derrick?
I would echo that. We fit very nicely into existing total station layout workflows, especially if there's multiple trades out there. As Tessa mentioned, multi-trade layout is the holy grail. We love to do that whenever we can do that. The reality is that's not possible on every single project. But when we see other trades out there with total stations, we have high confidence that everything's going to line up. Our biggest concern is when someone's out there doing something manually, using an old set of drawings, measuring off of columns instead of off of control points. I think if we can all embrace digital layout as a starting point, then you've got a lot of options and everything is generally going to work quite well in the field. So we dovetail into existing control points, control lines, just like William had mentioned, and our layout will align perfectly with anyone that's using total station, any competent layout provider, project engineer, field engineer that's using a total station to do their layout. On the data and software side, similarly, we connect to a lot of the available platforms, including Trimble Connect.
Okay, cool. Tomer?
So usually we are very happy if we get control points, right? And we get total stations and everything lines up, right? But it's not always the case. Usually you can get just somebody, putting an offset line from a really not very linear column line, right? So LIGHTYX has evolved few types of positioning processes that are not using control points, like they're using kind of scanning columns or walls to position yourself to existing conditions. So we are always very happy to work with those stations, but it's not always the case.
Thank you. And Tessa?
Yeah, we work off of the standard surveyed control point workflow. So Dusty builds off of those control points and ensures that your layout is 100% accurate relative to those control points. But one of the new features that we introduced earlier this year was something that we call flexible control, which, as Tomer mentioned, like not all sites have surveyed control. And so we've increase the flexibility of our system so that you can also work in sites where you don't have surveyed control, you don't have those total station set points, and we can still allow you to use Dusty.
Nice. Very cool. Okay, couple more then. We'll do another 5 minutes or so of these and then we'll wrap up. Quick one from Mitch. This will be for Dusty and for Rugged. Any plans to distribute or support the Australian market? Derrick, you go first.
We've looked at it. I would say after a wave of capital, we'd be super interested. So if you have any investors in Australia, I'm game. It's a big, interesting market. It's growing very rapidly. I'd love to join you.
Tessa?
Did you know that the size of the Australian market is about the size of the California market? We would love to expand internationally. We are putting together our plan for international expansion right now. Asia is our first priority right now, given our current crop of investors. But we would love to explore Australia in the future.
Nice. Okay. James, I'll jump to your questions. Pretty interesting one. And let me just show this quickly on here. So he says, I think we're still missing a big piece. How do your tool help trades respond to site conditions, deflection, thermal expansion, error accumulation, etc.? All these things play a role in how a project diverges from the design documentation. So a perfectly executed layout oftentimes is useless if it doesn't interface with actual conditions. Very good question.
Can I jump in and take that? Yeah, I just want to highlight.
Go for it.
I'm jumping at the bit here. This is something that being in the field, doing it ourselves, we have run into these problems years ago. Why it's perfect. Why doesn't it work? Well, because it's maybe too perfect. So we've definitely built a number of features out to help address this. I'll just highlight two quick ones. One is control verification, right? The control points that we get are all over the place. Sometimes they're, really tight and really well done. Other times they're a little bit sloppy. Other times it was a hot day or a cold day and you've seen thermal expansion and contraction. When you take our robot out and set it up, we've built a control verification process into our tablets so the robot can immediately check the quality of that, highlight any issues that we expect to run into. We can make adjustments and compensations for that. Another one, and it's something that we talked about a little bit with the laser projection, but the ability to make adjustments in the field to move features around that you're printing and then track that so that it can be documented in an RFI for clarification or confirmation can be issued after the fact is critically important. So I would say, we're always sensitive to this and building out more and more features to address.
Yeah.
Very nice. Tessa, I'll let Tessa go next. We'll stick with the layout and then we'll go to William and Tomo.
So I'm going to stick in another plug for our service provider partnership, service partner program. One of the things that they're bringing to market is this integrated workflow that starts with reality capture, goes through modifying your design files in order to accommodate the reality of your site conditions, and then ends with printing of layout on the floor. And that solution, that integrated solution and that workflow is really what the industry needs. And so I think starting from actual existing site conditions and then adjusting your print to cope with those site conditions is really the best solution. And I'm really happy that our service providers are providing that solution.
Very nice. Tomo, you were very keen to go next.
Yeah. So LIGHTYX offers both layout projection and layouts and scanning. So our workflow, we usually start by scanning, and we see all the non-idealities of the side, the as-built, and then we can adjust as we go. Our capabilities as a layout tool, as a digital tool, is much greater than doing it manually. So the flexibility that we offer here is much greater than whatever you can do manually, because we can measure, we can scan, we can shoot the layout so you can see it, and we can adjust the layout to and align it to the right, to the right location. So I think that's a much better process.
Nice. William?
Got it this time. Yeah, so I think similar to Tomer as well, right? Our product has scanning capacities, being able to modify layout on the fly while being documented. But I think your question really relates to thermal expansion of the concrete slab, right? So this is where advice needs to come into play, right? What my recommendation would be to probably do your layout not directly post pour, but probably wait a little bit and push your layout further down into your work schedule so that you have the time of your concrete pour to stabilize, right? So I think that would be an important thing. But of course, you need to have tools that are flexible. I'll say it again: flexibility is key to make modification, but documented modification, that is really important.
Mm-hmm. Okay, look, guys, I think that we should wrap up in the sake of time. And what I would suggest that if people have further questions, they reach out to you and your teams directly. I guess here we've been speaking for an hour or so. It's difficult to cover the entire spectrum of everything you do, but hopefully this gives people a good taste on and a bit of an overview on the market and how this market is starting to play out across the industry. I want to say a huge thank you to all of you guys for joining us. This is one very interesting category, and a category in which, or in fact, if we try to do similar thing in other categories, I'm not sure we would have every founder in the room. So hats off to all of you. And also, just to say, Bricks and Bytes will be doing some follow-on content to this. So stay tuned. We'll release this whole recording on our channels, as well as some written pieces. And finally, huge thank you to Christian for hosting this. Watch out for the job offer in your inbox later today. And of course, thank you to everyone who tuned in to listen to this. We're very grateful.